Oh man, yo, wait a second, man. One Piece chapter 1152. So I'm guessing this is the flashback that I got told about in the Patreon Discord server. Like some of the guys were telling me, like, man, when you get to a flashback, you're not gonna want to stop. Oh my god, yo, I don't know if it's the hype. I don't know. All I know is that I want more. I want more. Like I have thumbnails that have been purchased and made up to chapter 1155, and then I'm gonna have to wait a bit and then buy some more thumbnails. Dude, I kind of want to binge now. I kind of want to binge this. I don't want to stop. Cuz like it's a flashback within a flashback. Like if you guys have been following me for a while, you know that I am a sucker for a good lore dump. And that's what this feels like it might be. Because at first, like when I saw Shanks, and I was like, okay, so was this Shanks before he got the arm cut off? And then, because you couldn't really tell from like the build from the back. But then when you got the side profile of him and you see how much leaner he is, and obviously he's got the arm, it's like, okay, so this is Shanks before he got the arm that got bitten off and everything to protect Luffy. But like, I really want to see this. And like, I like the tease. I didn't see it coming, but I like the tease of like Luffy telling the dude Loki, like, you need to join my crew. And I kind of feel like Oda might do it. Now, there was a concern that was raised here. Absolutely. There was a concern of like, hey, the ship's not going to hold up. But it is worth noting, Frankie was looking at some of the bark. And it just makes sense that they leave this island and the Thousand Sunny has been upgraded. It just makes sense that something like that happens. I don't rule it out now. And I kind of want to see it. I really kind of want to see it. Because like Luffy, the crew needs something else. Because like even in this chapter, Gaban's like saying it like to Zoro, how were you able to serve your captain this entire time and you didn't even know that you had Supreme King Haki? Like at some point, you're going to have to defend your captain. And like when that's said, I'm going, okay, I see where Oda's going here. There's going to be some powers. Because like we already had the tease that Nami had it. It makes sense that Zoro would be there too. And to get confirmation that Zoro's got it. Like, it makes sense. And like, even like with what you saw in Wano, like I felt like there were teasers in Wano because I was looking at it, I was like, maybe, but then I stopped short. Because, one thing I've learned with One Piece is like, I don't want to jump the gun, but that's where like my mind immediately went. So let's just back things up. So like we all went this chapter and basically Gerd is told like, hey, make sure you check on Gaban, make sure you check on Loki, etc. Chopper's like, I'm going to stand back and I'm going to attend to him. And that's where we get two things that get confirmed, rather three things. The first thing is that Gaban tells Luffy, be careful how you use the Supreme King Haki, because not all of them are immortal, or that they are all not immortal. And that's interesting, because like we did see that like they're able to regenerate, but we also saw that Gaban was able to do some major damage to the Holy Knights. And there has to be a weakness. So that's interesting. Like all the hype on Supreme King Haki, that's going to be interesting. And like Loki, that's the second one. Loki's like, I wasn't able to verbalize my own power. You just helped me realize it. And he says, that means that the Holy Knights can be stopped. And he's like, take the cuffs off me, Hajrudin. And as soon as that happened, I'm going, okay. I think I see where Oda's going with this. Like Supreme King Haki's going to be needed to take all of them down. And then after Hajrudin's like, I'm not going to take you anywhere with me. I don't trust you. That's when Gaban sits up. And poor Sanji takes the nail right away. Because Sanji's like, do you mean that I have Supreme King Haki? I was so glad that something like this happened because I can't have Zoro taking all the glory. And it's like, nope, the swordsman, you're wreaking it. Luffy does the over-the-top expression. But what I like, though, is that Gaban tells him, how can you protect your captain, support your captain, an Emperor of the Sea, and you didn't even know that you had that. Which means that, like, Zoro, natural talent, can't wait to see what Zoro does now that he's been made aware. And I like how Sanji again gets shut down. Because Sanji's like, yeah, hey, what about me? Am I special? It's like, nah, fam. Like, we know that, you observation Haki, you cyborg, you throw down in the kitchen, you sit your ass down somewhere. We get to the meat and potatoes here. After Gaban says, hey, take Loki's chains off. After Luffy is like, I want to see Loki fight. I want Loki to join my crew. And even Hajrudin. Even Hajrudin's like, are you sure about this? Is this what you want? Is that your instinct? That lets me know that, like, Hajrudin is going to eventually fall in line with Luffy. And it's probably going to be after this flashback is done. And the way that everything is teed up is Gaban lets it be known, like, hey, on that day when everything happened, Shanks and I, we didn't get to see everything, but we saw enough. And once Shanks is spoken about, that's when Luffy's like, you guys go ahead. I'm sitting here and I got to learn more. And when Loki tries to shut Gaban up, that's where Gaban's like, hey, who better to hear this story than Hajrudin? Even though you guys got different mothers, you guys are still brothers. And, I can understand that, it's one of those things like, you don't necessarily always get along with your siblings. Like, I know for me, I don't necessarily get along with my half brother. And it's not because like I dislike him or anything. It's more like a father issue. We got the same father, different mothers, but I had to shut myself off. So I said to say this, I understand that there are times where family dynamics are more complicated than they seem on the surface. And I like with the flashback, we see a different side of Loki. Because as Loki is summoned to the castle, as Loki's walking through, you almost forget for a second because of how carefree and happy-go-lucky he is. Granted, he's rough around the edges, but because of how carefree and rough around the edges he is, you forget that this was a guy that everybody hated. You forget that this is a guy that is super powerful and was supposedly did all these evil things. And as he's walking through with the chief going towards the throne room, you see some of the back and forth, and he's like, your granddaughter needs to train. Things are way too soft right now. And when Loki, hears like, dad summoned me, I'm going to go in. He kicks in the door. And then that's where we see everybody is attacking what it looks like it is King Harold. And what's interesting is Loki immediately freaks out. And then that's where you get another jump cut. And we see Shanks. And like with that panel, again, I couldn't tell at first because Shanks, from the back, it looks like he was drawn with, a pretty decent build. Like Shanks was skinny. Like you could tell there was some muscle there. Especially like when you look at like the way the clothes fit, I always knew that Shanks had some muscle as far back as early East Blue Saga. But when I saw that frame, and the fitness geek in me is coming out now, so just bear with me for a second. When I saw that frame and I saw the traps and the deltoids, and I'm seeing like the lats, like the upper part of the lats on his back as he's sitting in that bath, I'm going, holy, okay, so Shanks met him after the time skip, but that's not what happened. And for a moment, I should have kicked myself. Number one, because of the hair not being all white with Gaban, and then the timeline wouldn't match up anyway, as far as like with time skip. So it's one of those things like I kicked myself after I got super excited, right? And I like how, Shanks is just talking and he reaffirms the fact like, I really wanted to, link up with Buggy and, I just wanted to be, laid back crew. And you can tell like at the end of the day, like Buggy might dislike Shanks, but Shanks holds no ill will towards Buggy. And it just fits the personality. And after Ripley, is, asking for more stories about Shanks, not Shanks, but about Gaban, and Gaban is pulling on Shanks' mouth when Shanks is like, when he went to a different island, he had a different, and he gets broken off. So Gaban was slinging that dick around. And I get why Gaban wants to shut him up. It's one of those things like Ripley probably already knows that Gaban probably had a bunch of women's legs up in the air and he was doing all kinds of stuff. He was doing the three-legged Russian with a lot of women. But nobody necessarily wants to hear that about their spouse. And, it's just a respect thing. So I get why Gaban's like, hey, shut up. So I did like that. And I like how Shanks is like, yeah, I know a little bit about Harold. I got along with him. But, we need to really talk because there were some things that we couldn't talk about the Holy Land that I really want to talk about. And then that's where we learn that this is what led to Harold getting killed. This is what led to the chief getting the sword in his head. This is what led to a forbidden devil fruit seemingly being taken. And then we jump ahead and we get another flashback that goes back 109 years. And it just shows Doy and Brogy and how they were raising hell. It also shows what looks like a younger King Harold. And he is just doing all kinds of damage. And as I'm looking at him, I'm starting to realize, okay, so this is where Loki got that unruly persona from. And that's why I do think that Loki's not above redemption. It just feels like he's just a better reflection of what Harold used to be. And it's one of those things of like, people mellow out in their old age. As you get older, you let things slide. And I kind of feel like that might be why Loki rubs some people the wrong way. It's not just because of what he supposedly did, but also for those that do remember, they are reminded of what Harold used to be. And that's the thing about change. Like when people change, they can't erase what happened in the past. They still carry all that stuff with them, but they also don't want to be reminded of who they used to be. But it's those experiences that made you who you are. And that's the ironic thing too, is that, I don't have kids, but that's one of the things I've always been told. Your kids, whatever your worst traits are, your kids have them. And you're going to have to look at those traits. The benefit to having the wisdom that you do is that you're able to course correct your kids, hopefully. And so it is going to be very interesting to see, because like the fact that we went this far back in time, it does make me kind of wonder, how long of a flashback are we going to get? Like, does Oda have the balls to go on another Kuma-like flashback that lasts for, what was Kuma, a couple of volumes? Does he have the balls to do something like that? I'm not opposed to it. I'm really not opposed to it. Like I said, the only thing stopping me from binging, like I'm going to be able to read the next 3 chapters, the only thing stopping me from really binging is the fact that I just can't buy the thumbnails right now. That's going to bring me to my chapter question, which is, how do you guys feel about like the take that I have? Do you think that because of what we're seeing with a younger King Harold, that it kind of proves the point that Loki's not above redemption? Let me know down in the comment section below. But as always, guys, anything I had to say, don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much for watching until then. Have an awesome day, guys.